Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're tackling gambling addiction, but we're going beyond the textbook, to really understand it on a human level.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that addiction often starts subtly, almost appealing at first.
Absolutely, and that's what makes this story so powerful. We're diving into excerpts from this Spanish podcast interview with Angel, who was deep in the throes of gambling addiction, and he really opens up about his journey, doesn't hold back.
It's those personal accounts that really help us grasp the reality of addiction. It can happen to anyone, doesn't discriminate.
It's a wake-up call for sure. So Angel's story, it begins pretty simply. It's a
Mm.
small bet, a Barcelona soccer game, which he actually wins.
Oh, wow.
But get this, he calls it his worst-case scenario, winning. Who would have thought?
Right. It's the illusion, the trap. That win, no matter how small, it's like a misleading first impression, makes you think you've cracked the code when really the odds are rarely in your favor long term.
Like a mirage, that oasis that vanishes as you get closer. That false hope, it must be so alluring, especially in the beginning.
Exactly. The brain gets a hit of dopamine, the feel-good chemical, and it wants more, more, more. So for Angel, that win, just the tip of the iceberg. He found himself spending more and more time researching odds, analyzing matches. His studies fell by the wayside. His life became all about that next gamble.
Neglecting responsibilities, chasing that win, it's a common thread in so many addictions, isn't it? You mentioned dopamine. What's its role in this whole addiction cycle?
Well, dopamine, it's our brain's reward signal. We get it from doing things that are pleasurable or crucial for survival. But addictive things, substances, or even behaviors, they hijack the system. They flood the brain with dopamine, creating this artificial, intense pleasure.
So it's not even about enjoying the activity itself, really. It's about chasing that dopamine rush.
Exactly. And the more you repeat that behavior, the more your brain gets used to those surges, which can lead to tolerance needing to do it more often, more intensely to get that same high.
So it's a vicious cycle. The stakes go up, the potential consequences get worse.
And for Angel, that's where things get really dark. He describes it as living in a bubble, the outside world fading away, relationships strained. Gambling became his everything.
Living in a bubble. What a powerful image of how isolating addiction can be. Was there a specific moment he realized how deep he was in?
He doesn't talk about a specific aha moment, but he does mention the financial loss, like a huge weight on him. He lost $100,000.
Wow. That's more than just money, That's potential debt, future plans, even basic needs at risk.
Exactly. It shows how gambling addiction doesn't just affect the individual, it impacts loved ones, their finances, their whole life. And often, alongside financial strain, relationships really start to suffer.
Makes sense. The lying, the broken promises, that feeling of betrayal takes a toll on everyone.
Trust erodes, communication breaks down. It's tough to maintain healthy relationships. And Angel shares this really poignant story about gambling while his father was in a coma.
Oh, wow. That's heavy. Gambling while his father's fighting for his life. That really shows how strong the pull of the addiction was.
It's a stark reminder of how addiction can twist your priorities. It can lead to choices that go against your values, hurt the people you care about. And it also shows the depth of denial that often comes with addiction.
So you'd think at that point, facing financial ruin, relationships falling apart, that'd be the wake-up call, right?
You'd hope so, but it's rarely that simple. Addiction doesn't have an off switch. It's not just willpower. Angel decided to move to Plymouth, England to get away from his triggers, make a clean break.
Change of scenery, fresh start. I get that.
It's a common coping mechanism, and sometimes it helps, at least for a bit. And it seemed to work for Angel for a while. He managed to stay away from gambling, started rebuilding his life.
But there's got to be a but.
There often is with addiction. See, the brain, it's been rewired. Certain things, sights, sounds, even emotions, they can trigger cravings even after you've been abstinent for a while. These are cue-induced cravings, driven by changes in the brain's reward pathways.
So even with the best intentions, relapse is a real danger.
Absolutely. And sadly for Angel, it only took seeing one betting shop to relapse. Those old habits, the allure of it all came back.
Like his brain had this pathway, this superhighway, leading him right back to those behaviors.
That's a great way to put it. And that's why therapy is so important in recovery. It's not just about willpower. It's about rewiring those pathways, finding healthier ways to cope.
So if moving away, avoiding triggers wasn't enough, how did he finally break free? What was the turning point?
This is where it gets interesting. It wasn't about forcing himself to quit or making some big decision. It was about finding a new passion, something to fill the space left by gambling.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Fill the void with a new purpose. Tell me more.
For Angel, it was fitness. He'd always been passionate about it, struggled with weight in the past. Even during his struggles with gambling, exercise, and healthy living were like a haven for him.
So the seeds of his recovery were there all along.
Exactly. And during this time in Plymouth, he decides to turn that passion into his career. He starts his own fitness company.
Wow. Turning a negative into a positive, helping others achieve their fitness goals.
Hmm.
It's like he channeled his struggles into something constructive.
Absolutely. And that shift in focus from the destructive cycle of gambling to helping others, it was transformative. He found real fulfillment in his work, a purpose that overshadowed the highs of gambling.
That's powerful. Finding something that motivates you gives you a reason to get up in the morning. That can be incredibly empowering, especially when fighting addiction.
It's about replacing those harmful patterns with healthy ones, with things that build you up.
It makes you think about passions in general. Maybe not everyone listening has dealt with addiction, but we've all faced challenges, moments of doubt, times when we felt lost.
We've all been there. Life throws curveballs.
And I'm willing to bet everyone listening has a passion, a hobby, even just doing something kind for someone that helped them through a tough time.
Absolutely. It's in those moments when we connect with those passions, find purpose beyond ourselves, that we discover real resilience. It's about that inner strength, that drive to keep going. And that seems to be the core of Angel's message to anyone struggling. There's hope, but recovery often needs a multi-pronged approach.
It's not one size fits all, no magic solution.
Mm.
It's about finding what works for you, and often that means getting support.
Exactly. Angel stresses how crucial it is to seek help. He's a big advocate for therapy, support groups, resources specifically for addiction.
It just makes sense. You don't have to go through it alone. Reaching out to therapists, support group, it's about finding the tools and strategies that work for you.
Right, and never underestimate the power of talking to loved ones. Sharing your struggles, being vulnerable with trusted friends and family can make a huge difference.
It takes courage to admit you need help, but that can be the first step towards healing. Angel's story really shows that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely, it's a testament to the human spirit, overcoming so much, finding purpose, even when facing adversity.
He went from hitting rock bottom to building a successful business, all while battling addiction. It's truly inspiring. It speaks to the power of resilience, that inner strength.
And he's very open about the practical things he did to stay on track. Like, he talks about cutting off access to gambling completely, blocking websites, closing accounts, even just staying away from places where gambling happens.
Out of sight, out of mind, right. Remove the triggers, the temptations.
Exactly. And finding healthy outlets is key too, things that bring you joy. For him, it was fitness, but it could be anything: music, art, spending time in nature.
Rediscovering those passions that make life worth living.
Absolutely. I think that's what makes Angel's story resonate so much. It's a message of hope. Recovery is possible. But it's not just about stopping a harmful behavior. It's about finding something meaningful to fill that space.
Rewriting your story, with self-compassion and belief in the possibility of change.
Beautifully said.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into gambling addiction, let's leave our listeners with something to think about. If you could go back, talk to your younger self before that first bet, what would you say?
Wow. What a question. It makes you reflect on your own journey, the choices you've made, the lessons you've learned.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Angel's story. It's a conversation we need to keep having.
Until next time, keep asking the tough questions.